Right. What are we chatting about?
Does industry
experience
I need
matter?
to get my head in gear here.
I'll intro.
Yeah, you'll be there.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you, Dan?
Yeah, cold.
It is cold.
How are you?
Bit warmer. New merch. Anybody that's watching this on camera?
Anyone watching? Jealous? Anyone listening? Don't have a clue.
For everybody else, I'm wearing a nice green hoodie that says Flaunt across the front. It's very cozy. So, back again.
Back again.
Dream team. We've got a nice topic for discussion today, and it's quite a common one.
Go on then.
That we come up against a lot when we're pitching, and that is, does industry experience matter when you're choosing an agency?
You know, when you said it comes up a lot, I'd say it comes up. Would I go as far as 100% of the time in terms of it being a question that we're asked? If it does
definitely
come up,
a lot.
Yeah, if it does come up, I'd say 99% of the times it's the first question that's asked, especially for an inbound inquiry, because you'd like to think that inbound is qualified to the extent that they know what we do.
Yes.
And therefore it might be services or areas of
you do these services, but do you do them for?
Yeah, like the first question more often than not is like, who have you worked with in our sector, or like, have you got experience in our sector? So I think the very first answer to that is, to many brands, yes, they think it matters. To agencies, I'm not sure.
There's a few bits. So I think what we'll cover today will be sort of the pros and cons of hiring an agency with specific industry experience, because there is good parts of that, and there are things that are necessary. Whether a lack of industry experience can impact strategy. Examples of where it hasn't really mattered whether you've got that agency experience, sector experience for specific industries, and a bit of a look at probably some more personal and Flaunt-based case studies into examples that we've got for that.
Yeah.
And things that you should also be considering beyond industry experience when you are looking for an agency as well.
Yep.
So, first one, I mean, easy because there are massive benefits to this, but what are the benefits of choosing an agency with specific industry experience? Because there are loads, of course there are.
Yeah, I think I don't think this is always right in when you then maybe start working with an agency that you might have chosen that has industry experience in your sector over, let's say, another agency that you're considering. I don't think this necessarily always pans out this way, but I think it gives brands an immediate safety net, comfort. So I think a benefit to the brand when speaking to agencies in with experience in their own sector is immediate, like one of the many barriers that I'm sure brands face when they're thinking of either changing agencies or hiring a new agency or whatever, speaking to new agencies is, this is, there's a lot we have to consider here, and that's just one box we can immediately tick, is like, right, okay, they've worked in our sector.
And I think for a lot of businesses, if they're hiring an agency for the first time as well, I can see why you would hold that as a point that you really wanted.
There's a lot of risk, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, massive. Like, there's a lot of investment.
Yeah. You
want reassurance.
Yeah.
And I guess a little bit of proof.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing for me is the benefit. I'm sure there's some studies on this and there's some data on this that there must be a benefit of speed, like speed to get up to speed for that agency in their sector. If you're starting
the audience.
Like if you're working in that sector and then you're appointed by another player in that sector, then you'd like to think in theory that getting up to speed and being able to execute whatever you're wanting to execute, campaigns, putting strategy into place, you've got a leg up there. So there must be a speed benefit for it. This is all in theory. That's what I said earlier,
yeah.
that it doesn't always pan out this way. But I think let's think about just prospecting stages and brands talking to agencies and getting them to pitch, and then the early stages of having appointed that agency. I'm sure speed to market, if that's the right way to put it, like speed to execution of campaigns once you've appointed that agency, there must be some research that backs out that you're quicker to get up to speed.
Of course there is. And there's also industries where that's way more relevant. So particularly I'm thinking industries where there's a lot of compliance that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, regulated industries, definitely.
Where a lot of that takes a long time to learn and really understand how you can work with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going into that sort of sector with absolutely zero knowledge, it's going to take you a little bit to get it off the ground.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take you a while to figure all that out, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And then I think with that, linked to that from the brand side, is back to the, not risks, but like you just said earlier about the investment in time that the brand has to invest in onboarding their agency, and all that like immersion and learning that they want to impart on, knowledge they want to impart on the agency. That's quicker, you would say. I'm hesitating with everything I'm saying.
I'm saying
on
the flip side, like I know we're talking about, whatever, but I'm saying that can actually be a very good thing. If you're going into an agency that have no prior knowledge of your industry and you're teaching them yourself as a business, you're teaching them your way, which can be very, very, very beneficial,
100%.
especially for a relationship going forwards, rather than them having some prior knowledge, jumping the gun, not feeling like they need to necessarily understand your individual business needs because they know the industry already.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And there can be a little bit of cockiness with that. In that, well, we know the best, we don't need to.
Yeah, I think
we know what happens.
Definitely cockiness, complacency, ego, all that sort of stuff comes into it. And ultimately, look, we've worked with and will continue in the future to work with brands in sectors where we have sector experience because of the things that we've talked about, and we get in the room and day one, even if we've got deep experience in that sector, we want to learn about that brand. Every brand at least should or believes that they are different to their competitors. Of course, you'll focus on what makes them different, differentiators, USPs, things like that, but they're telltale signs that there is absolutely a need and value from both sides to do that sort of deep immersion session, even if you're coming at it from an experience point of view. So I think time is a big benefit. I also then would flip that and say, but actually I wouldn't just shortcut stuff all the time, because that is the flip side of time, i.e. a big, deep sort of immersion session, onboarding like month that you might have with a new client. That's vital, that's pivotal for both sides as well. And
starting work with a client and immediately jumping straight into a campaign and a full thing after like a week, that would be a huge red flag.
Just makes me nervous, that.
Yeah.
Like for both sides, the fact that an agency might sign up for that and the flip side, a brand might like
let that happen,
look for that. Like that to me is I agree with you, massive red flag. But you're right, you mentioned like regulated industries and compliance. Do not get me wrong, like if we're having it in, we're having conversations in brand new sectors for us that we want to get into, and they are big regulated industries with lots of eyes on them, and it's hard, but we're doing our best to lean on like similar experiences, not the same experiences. And that's where this whole topic that we're discussing today, our way of working is it when we get asked that question from a prospective new client, who have you worked with? I'm so confident. In my early on in my career, I'd be a bit nervous to be like, oh, who can I say that's like even touching on, even closer. Whereas now I'm like, I almost make a joke of it, go, no, we wouldn't be able to speak to you if we're working with one of your direct competitors because of conflicts of interest. But actually what we have done is, and then we typically lean into like objectives. What are they trying to achieve, and where have we done that
similar case study,
in environments that might have similar dynamics to their industry? And it's a much better conversation for both sides as well.
Because we've seen it, not at Flaunt, but in previous businesses and agencies where there is that need for an agency to put forward a pitch, but then they are literally like grabbing at every little bit of experience they can in the sector. They're pulling in people's freelance work. They're pulling in like, oh, they spoke to that client once and gave them some advice on some ads. We'll put them down as a client.
Yeah.
And, you know, absolutely the most ridiculous thing. So how is that any better than an agency coming to you with genuine experience that's not necessarily industry related, but also be aware that all those agencies that are coming to you with this industry experience, I would look into what that is.
100%. I'd also ask timeframes.
Yeah.
Timeframes, not only on, say, an agency just has said, you know, these are the results that we've driven in your sector. I'd ask over what period of time, and even more critically, I'd ask when was that period of time? Yep. Because how many times have we talked about, people be fed up of hearing us say this, how fast digital moves. So if you can say, we had this, you know, deep 12-month experience of these results back in 2017.
Yep.
It's completely different to someone maybe saying, yeah, we only worked for a shorter period of time, a 6-month project, for example, in that space bloody 5 months ago. Yeah. It's completely different. You need to weight it. And I completely agree with you. Like, ask the questions, and ask the questions of, for me personally, timings and timelines as well. In that example that I've just given there, because you can just see straight through it. And we all know agencies can unfortunately just bullshit you. It's too easy.
And they do. But the thing is, if brands and businesses are putting forward these very strict things that they're not even going to look at a proposal that hasn't got the right industries, they haven't got competitors on there, then they're kind of asking for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's also a point there for brands and for businesses to kind of think about what they really, really want to see.
Yeah.
Because be aware that there are agencies out there that will bullshit you.
100%. It's too easy for them.
But if you've made it too strict and too narrow, and not really focused on exactly what you actually need from the agency,
100%. I much prefer having a conversation with a brand, and some are just a closed book to this, and fair enough, they ain't going to be right for us, we're not going to be right for them, and we move on. But I much prefer having this conversation about, like, who have you worked with in our sector, pull away from that and go like a layer up from that and be like, right, okay, we haven't worked with direct competitor A or B, and that's the truth. So firstly, you're getting honesty, and then secondly is, what are you looking to achieve, and what types of challenges and the dynamics of your like industry and your environments, can we talk about them? Because we can probably then go back into our case studies and success stories and start having a conversation with you at that level. And when we have those type of conversations and a brand is open to that level of conversation, it just seems to be a more effective conversation for everybody's benefit.
Of course it does, because not only does it help the agency understand exactly what the brand's looking for, it actually helps the brand.
Yeah.
Because if they're just throwing their thing out there, just saying, oh, we want an agency to come offer these services for us, and they just need to have worked in this industry. Right, that's great. But actually, if somebody's helped them really understand exactly what they want to achieve, reframed it for them, so they're looking for somebody to help them drive XXXXX instead of just somebody who's worked in the industry, they're obviously going to get better results. They're going to invest their money better. They're going to see more return on it. They're actually going to get more longevity from the project.
Yeah. I get why it's almost like a default question from a brand side.
And like I said, I do think there's industries where it's important.
100%, yeah. And I'm on board with those conversations where I feel like they're appropriate, but where I feel like they're limiting both the brand and the agencies. I feel like a better conversation is, like I just said, objectives, goals, challenges, dynamics of your industry, and then just lean on those, because ultimately you're just totally restricting yourself. And I understand there's an awful lot of agency choice out there. That's why I know why people start funneling it down from a brand side to go, right, let's talk to agencies in our sector. I get that, but you are limiting yourself, both from, as I've said, like objectives that might be similar, but also like ideas that agencies have lived and learned elsewhere and could actually be maybe a little bit innovative for your sector, and they bring them bring them
new ideas, bring something that they've seen in another sector that might adapt and work for yours that's not been done before. It's, it can be hugely advantage to have that way of thinking and that mindset.
Definitely. So you're limiting that with the flip side of just saying we only want to speak to our sector experienced agencies. completely. But fresh ideas is great. Look how many industries have digitalized due to something like COVID. Like there's so many industries, and industries that have been born out of COVID as well, that if you were a specialist agency, as in specializing only in a single or two or whatever industries, and they don't fall into those sort of categories, something like COVID hits and you're absolutely scrambling, both brand and agency.
You are. And then as soon as they will take it digital, then everybody just looks the same. And you've got to think of those real world examples where, and this is becoming so much more important for brands, is to be the one that's different.
Yeah.
Think, say, of Monzo. They have taken what is typically a very boring, stale, samey industry of banking and flipped it on its head and created this really fun, interesting brand. And the way they talk and the way they communicate is much similar to, say, like food and drink brands we've seen. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
And I don't know the strategy behind that. I don't know whether it was agency born. I don't know whether that was done in-house. I don't know what it was. But there's no way if they'd gone to the same agency that did, I don't know, Lloyd's, Barclays, all that sort of thing, and went, we want to create some like ads for banks and want to create like a tone of voice, they'd have got the same as everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. There's so much more like presence of brand there. Like you're saying, we don't know who's behind it, like agency, whatever. But there's so much thought about brand and human.
It's thinking outside the box. And an agency should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Any agency should be able to do that. But if you go to one that, it's quite easy to get stuck in a rut. If you're just working with the same businesses over and over again and that's the way it's done, nothing ever actually changes.
100%. And I also think just from an agency side now, like, look, as I mentioned there, COVID, something, God forbid, but COVID happened. And if that happens or something similar in the future, we lost industries. As I said, new industries were born. We lost a load of agencies because they were so pigeonholed into those sectors themselves. Yep. I know we're sort of focusing more in this conversation on like the benefits to the brand as well and touching on agencies, but let's just focus just on agencies now. We sadly saw a lot of agencies fall by the wayside when something like COVID hit, and then you start digging into it and there were a lot of horror stories where they were just so pigeonholed or specialized in the pockets of the economy that were just absolutely shattered.
A really good example is hospitality.
Well, there you go. If you're a hospitality, and don't get me wrong, we absolutely love our hospitality clients and we love it, but there's some serious dynamics in that industry.
Because obviously a lot of hospitality businesses really struggled over COVID, and if you're an agency that focused purely on hospitality, at that point, all your clients are struggling for money.
Yeah. I mean, the industry had to flip on its head.
Exactly.
Click and collect and stuff that some of these traditional groups that just had absolutely no infrastructure for.
And agencies did come into play there because obviously there was a lot that needed to be done around that.
Yeah.
But also, it's a big thing to weigh all of your business in one area.
Of course, it's just diversify risk, don't you? That's exactly it. So we've been fortunate, but it wasn't fortunate in just we got lucky. It was a targeted move from leadership to diversify that risk, to not be pigeonholed. And shit hits the fan with something like COVID. There's that side of it, but then there's the flip side that we've talked through, that like you can bring new, fresh ideas, innovative stuff that has worked in completely opposing industries, but actually have similar principles or, as I said, similar challenges or whatever, where this innovative thinking can be brought over to. So
because
don't get stuck in that rut.
Isn't wildly different.
Well, at the
your
end
audience
of the day, it's
for say
humans
like
as well.
that. Well, I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Every audience is still human, and your person that might go for, I keep throwing the bank example out there, but it's an easy one. Your person that banks with X bank might also shop with this clothing brand. They're not completely mutually exclusive. No. The audiences have so many crossovers, and there's actually loads of scope there for collaboration and collaborative thinking in how you utilize the different areas for those audiences.
Yeah, definitely. I think personally, I think it's too limiting. I know that there are some exceptions in terms of regulation, but beyond regulation, and even then, I know some of the conversations we're navigating and opportunities where we're in the mix for that are in the sort of more regulated industries, where we're absolutely holding our own, if not more. And my understanding is we've been in the mix against some of those specialists in those industries.
Yeah, we have.
And they've lost out in the process, and we've like continued in the process. So, there's proof there that even these brands in these more like tight, regulated, controlled industries, even they're wanting to get out. Like they're wanting to shake off the shackles of like, let's really think about getting some digital specialists into an inherently offline industry, for example, because they can see, that they can see it. And building brand online is such it's the playground for that as well. So I personally think my answer is almost a flat out no to does it matter, with a couple of caveats.
I think that brings us really nicely on to another topic as part of this, is what else should businesses be looking for beyond industry experience?
Loads more.
When they're looking at agency.
Loads more.
I mean, easy first one, services.
Yeah.
If you're looking at an agency and say you may be just looking at, I don't know, a website initially, which good starting point for a lot of businesses, especially as they're looking to enhance their digital, they tend to start with a website. And that's great. So, you look for specialist dev team, not that bothered about industry experience, that's great. But then there's lots of other things that are worth bearing in mind when you are weighing up those agencies against each other. And I think a big one is other service offerings.
Yeah.
So if you're building a relationship with an agency and they're doing your website, obviously this isn't always the case, but probably look for like a little bit of SEO experience in there somewhere.
Yeah, you'd hope
and
so.
It's often not the case with development agencies. It's not a given. But also think about what you want in the long term over the next 2, 3, 5 years in terms of how you want to expand that digital or marketing efforts further, and see if there's potential for that within the agency you're appointing, because that's a really great thing if you can keep it within one agency that understands your brand and that can evolve with you and learn from you and help you along the way. I think that's really positive.
Completely agree. I think but it sings that specifically sings back to when we were talking about investment in time.
Yes.
Of going through the motions and through the rigmarole and process of finding a new agency for X, a new agency for Y. Again, there's caveats to there's flip sides to everything. You might not want, it's diversifying risk. You might not want all services run by one agency, but then very quickly flip that, and there's some seriously tangible, obvious, clear benefits to me to have a lot of services under one roof around that time and risk and investment as well. So yeah, I mean, we're finding ourselves, as I'm saying it in inverted commas, like more multi-service. And what I mean by that is multi of the services that we do. We're not we're not a full service agency, and we never would be, but the different service offerings that we have, we are more multi-service for our clients.
Delivering, we're seeing more and more crossover.
Than we ever have been.
Yes.
And I think that's testament to what you're saying there, and also the fact that I'm going to pat ourselves on the back now. We're doing a great job across single services and single areas of focus into growing it across the piece, whatever that is, digitally. So yeah, definitely agree with that. I just think it's all the principles stuff as well is that you look out for, like the serious fundamentals of decent people, communicative
staff.
Communicative, retain staff, retain clients, ask like average client relationship tenures and stuff like that.
Clear ways of working, clear targets,
processes that you see yourself fitting into as well. It's usual stuff for me. And it's
a lot of, we actually covered this on another episode, didn't we, about what to look for when you are looking for an agency, and what are the red flags.
And for me, from an agency side, a big red flag, back to the topic of conversation here, for me, a big red flag would be And I'm thinking about a conversation we had 6 to 12 months ago, and it's interesting you said about dev. We had a dev opportunity to build a new website in a sector where they were just like, I can't remember what it was. Was it insurance or something? Again, regulated, I understand. But from a website perspective, I was trying to say, no, I can't. I'd be lying to you if I said, here's our insurance portfolio of websites we've built. But I said, can we just dig into it a little bit more? What's the functionality of the website? What does a website need to do? How does it need to look? And I understand there's regulations around all that, but I also had the conversation to say, like, for me personally, for example, I used to work in financial services marketing. So there's enough experience to be able to quantify how much it's important.
Yes.
And I was effectively saying, I don't think it's that important for you. And they were saying, no, it really is. And that was just enough of a red flag for me that the project itself probably wasn't going to be right for us or them. And they just weren't open to having the conversation at the level I was trying to have, which was, you're basically talking a B2B website that needs no whizzy functionality. It's pretty much a brochure informational site. Content is what is regulated, really. Design wise, nothing.
And a lot of the time, somewhere like that, a lot of the content will be reviewed by legal teams anyway.
Yeah, it'll come from our clients, we usually say anyway, due to exactly what we've talked about today about who knows the brand better, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that is enough of a red flag to me that it's just, they're too rigid in their expectations. And one of their expectations is we must work with an agency. I mean, a website for me is the lowest of the low in terms of the service area for delivering something in a regulated industry in terms of its criticalness. Is that criticality? What's the word? For like specialist agencies. So I tried to have that conversation. They weren't playing ball, and that's enough of a, call it a red flag. That sounds quite brutal, but enough of a sign that I don't think either side it was going to be right for.
And do you know what? It's not. I think that's, there's not a lot of agencies where they just go, hold their hands up and go, yeah, it's not going to work. They don't want to do that.
Exactly.
They push and 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 they clutch at things that they can throw that back up this point, that back up that point. I watched it happen.
Yeah, so have I. So have all of us that have been pre-flaunt at other agencies will have seen it. And we know it's happened. There was something on LinkedIn about half an hour ago before we came on to record this that I saw people talking about similar. It was agency conversation, but it was a similar about like experience of brands' expectations. Someone had commented saying he's from an agency, and I think he'd said something like, we found out that an agency in the mix for this pitch for a brand had just flat out lied because they had a logo from years ago on their website and said it's a long-standing relationship, yet this other agency in the mix, this guy that was posting, it actually was a client of theirs. So you actually had two agencies in the mix pitching. One was saying, oh yeah, long-standing relationship, and I don't know how many years ago it was a legitimate client, but they've been and gone. And you actually had the agency working for that brand also in the mix. So inevitably it all came to the fore, as it should do and it would do, and that other agency that were bullshitting got booted out.
As they should.
Yeah, too right. So just be honest.
As they should.
Like, just be honest.
And brands and businesses are trusting you to be honest at this point.
Yeah, like there's enough, there should be enough to go around if your marketing and sales is slick enough, your brand is slick enough. Like, rely on that, put your eggs in that and centre around honesty. And just, yes, you will be turning down a lot of opportunities and conversations. We do that. It's all, you could almost, in my early career, if I could see where we are now and the stuff that we turn down or walk away from or mutually agree with the brand, probably not right. It's eye-watering, and it'd be really concerning. Back at the start of my career,
like, I'm thinking about other places. I'd be like, what do you mean we're turning down? What?
Walking away from stuff.
We're not putting forward a proposal. Why?
Yeah, decent values or great brands or whatever. It's like, no, we've got to the place where we want to work with people on a solid, trustworthy footing, and then all the other stuff that we've talked about as well. And lying through your teeth. To be honest, I really hope this. I mean this. I really hope you get found out.
I hope we get found out too, because it's something that's done too often in this industry.
Yeah.
Done way too often and done too lightly. Like, people don't think about the consequence of it. There isn't a consequence for it.
Well, no.
That's the problem.
You just move on to the next one and bullshit to the next one.
Yeah.
It is too easy, isn't it?
It is.
But yeah, there's loads more than just experience, in my opinion.
So, I think we'll probably wrap it up there, to be honest.
Good chat.
Nice chat. So I think mainly what we've covered really is industry experience can matter, but a lot of the time it doesn't.
Yeah, tread carefully. And
be open and be aware of what you truly want to get from an agency before just giving the stipulation that they have to have worked with these brands or worked with your industry. Think about what it is that you really need to get from it first before you start throwing out things like that.
Yeah, I'd definitely add a part B to that, which is also if you really, really think that you must work with an agency in a specialist industry, just think about how limiting that could be for you, because of what we've said about it's too easy for agencies to lie as well. But yeah, maybe have a think about if you'd be open to having a conversation more at a objectives, goals level.
This or that.
Are you doing that for me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, shit.
All right. Number 1. Easy. Industry experience versus fresh perspective.
I mean, I think everyone else can answer that for me. Fresh
perspective.
Fresh.
Okay. Full service agency versus specialised agency.
Are we saying they're like full service? Like a full service. I'm going to say specialised. In terms of agency services, because I see us as more specialised. We're not full service.
Across digital, yeah. Okay. Large agency versus boutique agency.
I've just got bad experience with large. I'm thinking large networks here.
Yeah.
Boutique. And we're saying boutique just
small
as being the opposite of a large network. Yeah.
Easy.
Whatever size they are, but yeah, boutique. I want to ask you all the same. So what was it? Industry experience versus fresh perspective.
Obviously fresh perspective.
Boutique versus large agency.
I'd go smaller, yeah, boutique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one was what?
Full service versus specialised. There's advantages to both.
Gotta pick one.
Specialised. But full service, look and check that each area is.
I've got one for you. Final one.
Go on.
This or that. Imagining people who can't. I don't know, I'm watching that. What is he pointing at something? This or that?
I think I prefer that. What about you?
I'll go this.
All right, nice.